Greetings, everyone.
I'm back, baby.
It's Jake Ciely.
I'm great. Everybody else sucks.
Oh,
Oh no! It's every nightmare I've ever had!
Excuse me?
It's time to check the link.
Pretty crazy, huh? But it doesn't matter because none of this has anything to do with the show.
You know what? You just made the list!
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time. Really? No.
What's up, you ducks? It's All in Football with Stepmom Lauren, officially every single week going forward on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Look at how excited she is. She doesn't know what she's getting into. I think we have a few things to talk about today, but real quick, as a reminder before we do, well, I was going to say at Stepmom Lauren, but I already said that part. So forget that. Yeah, follow her again. Follow her twice. That's how much she deserves it. Yeah, pointing to it. ALLIN. That's the code for 20% off FTN. And speaking of things, you can also free first month at The Athletic. You go to theathletic.com/BetsTV. All capitals. That's where you can see the updated ranks and projections that I was scrambling to get done right before this show as Lauren and 800 people decide to text me at the same time because, no, good for Lauren. Yeah, this is news. I appreciate that. But it's all the friends and everybody like, oh my God, back to It's like, okay, you realize I'm trying to work. This is like trying to come into my, what would you say if you came into my operating room while I was on the table type of thing here. I appreciate it. I'm going to text you all back at noon once this show's over. But yes, Lauren, so I think we wanted to talk about Trevor Lawrence or something. No, wait, Daniel Jones or something. What happened this morning? Something happened this morning, right?
Oh, Daniel Jones did throw an interception in the red zone per usual. I do know that. Yeah, crazy news. And I feel, my friend Casey Kasem tweeted this out as well. Maybe she just messaged me. I don't know. Things are getting unclear
Wait, the
now.
guy who does like the top 50 music stuff?
Yeah, her. No, her name is Casey. She's a fabulous follow, by the way, at the Casey Kasem. Is this real? Or is this just some kind of spoof? I need you to help me understand this situation.
I am definitely not 100% right with everything with this team specifically. I was 100% right on one thing and 100% wrong on another. I said Damian Harris was a thing the entire time because I thought Sonny Michel was going to get released, not traded. So I was wrong and still right at the same time. For everybody that is out there that doesn't know what we're joking about, like maybe you haven't seen Twitter or the world blowing up right now, is the Patriots released Cam Newton, which that's where I was 100% wrong. I thought Cam Newton was going to start week 1. I thought by that, for all intents and purposes, that was the report a lot of people said after week 3 of the preseason was that he had such limited action. Mac Jones spent the entire time into the second half playing. This was like, hey, this tells us they've seen enough from Cam Newton. Like, that's reports that were given. They've seen enough from Cam Newton that they know they're going into week 1 with him. And then we wake up today, this being, depending on when you're listening to it, August 31st, Cam Newton is gone off the team, just out there, not even a trade, just anybody can go pick them up. Hello, Texans. We might want to pick up the phone. You don't even have a quarterback right now. Well, you have Davis Mills. But, yeah, I know. I see the face that you're making. And Mac Jones is the starter. We're going to talk about it for fantasy purposes, but like you said, this doesn't seem real to a degree, Lauren.
Yeah, and that's what was so mind-boggling for me is that they just released him. There's still value there. I'm not an expert on salary caps and things of financial nature. I can't even do math.
Oh, the NFL salary cap is fake anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then that makes a little bit more sense, maybe, I guess. I'm not sure. So just the fact that they released him is interesting, and he's not even the backup quarterback behind Mac Jones, which is interesting.
Brian
and
Hoyer.
Oh, yes, please sign me up.
No, so I will say this. The one part of it where I see, again, I don't understand why they didn't get a trade out of it. I guess.
Me neither. That's what I'm failing to comprehend up here.
When you see, other teams out there getting conditional 6th and 7th round picks, that's not exciting. How many times has a 6th or 7th round pick hit in the NFL? But it's at least something. So again, this might be cap ramifications for other teams that didn't even want to bother at this point. Whatever it might be, I'm assuming Cam's going to be on a team before we get to opening week 1, or not, probably short after that. But what I say is, I understand it from an NFL perspective because Brian Hoyer and Mac Jones, same offense. You need a different offense for Cam Newton. So I understand why he doesn't fit as a backup, not to mention, maybe it's hey, we'll be nice by you. Instead of making you just sit here as a backup for a team that you don't really fit anymore, we'll let you go try and find something. But let's talk for the fantasy purposes. I tweeted this out, and I said it right off the top, is this doesn't do much for me for Damian Harris. That'll be the first one we talk about. But it does a little bit. I'm not victory lapping Damian Harris because everybody's on him now, and everybody's going to be like, oh, you weren't saying. And I was. But whatever that point may be. Damian Harris was always inside my top 25 because, again, I thought Sony Michel was gone. That's really why. So we know Mac Jones is a plus to everybody on this offense because you have better accuracy. But for Damian Harris, you have more carries and more carries specifically to get touchdowns inside the red zone that Cam doesn't take from you. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Were you considering Damian Harris an RB2 before this? And if not, are you okay? So now is he top 20 because that's where he is for me. He slipped inside the top 20. He was RB 23 before this. Now he's RB 19, sandwiched between Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I would take him over David Montgomery, as crazy as that might sound.
Ooh, that is spicy. And CH is way too low. No bueno. Yeah, but I like it. I do within the top 20. Well, that's because
Gus Bus is now at 17.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
See?
Did you also add Tyson Williams in there too? Just
Oh, Tyson Williams. Yeah, that's. I don't want to talk about that. I ranted about that yesterday, Lauren. I tweeted out about Tyson Williams. It's like, hey, this is the name. And everybody's like, what about Justice Hill? And then yesterday, ESPN's like, oh, by the way, Tyson Williams looks to be the back. I was like, I just said that. Anyway, well, here, let me kind of a pseudo. Like we'll make a list here. I know somebody already requested us one for quarterback. We could do that,
yes.
But. You tell me, you said Clyde Edwards too low. Damian Harris will throw in this mix. I'll give you 15 through 20. And you rank my 15 through 20 how you want them. So my 15 through 20 is James Robinson, Mike Davis, Gus Edwards, Edwards-Helaire, Damian Harris, and David Montgomery.
I would put CEH up on the top and then keep that list.
And then keep the rest? So CEH would be 15, and then Robinson, Davis, Edwards, Harris, Montgomery? So you think Harris is in a good spot?
I do. I think he's in a great spot. I think you nailed it. I don't want to say the sky's the limit because, again, this is the Patriots that we're talking about here. So, but yeah, this really opens up a lot of things for Damian Harris in the red zone, like you mentioned, because Cam Newton was the one taking all those, touchdowns. He had 10, right? Last year, I think. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he ran a lot, and that's not good when you want to have a running back on your fantasy squad to run the football. So this is good all around, I think, for the Patriots in real football and in fantasy.
Yeah, so Cam Newton last year, I think 10 was correct. I'm going to double check. I'm trying to find it right now. Where is Cam Newton? Cam Newton, 10 rushing 12 rushing touchdowns. We were both wrong. 12, and then, by the way, 8 passing.
12. Ooh.
8 passing and 10 interceptions for everybody out
10
there.
10 interceptions. I knew there was a 10 in there.
You got the 10. You definitely got the 10. So with this, let's Damian Harris, Stevenson. We talked about this already on another show. Stevenson, a good flyer. If something happens to Harris, we know James White is not going to be the main lead. So Stevenson is, for everybody who wants the simple comparison, he's LeGarrette Blount. Here's their new LeGarrette Blount. That's who he is. Even less of a pass catcher, if that's possible, than Damian Harris. Although Damian Harris, I could see walking into about 20 receptions. He's never going to be a world beater, but he's better than people realize. Just because similar to Josh Jacobs, hasn't been used in that way. So I wouldn't completely discount Damian Harris for that. But for pass catchers with Mac Jones at quarterback, as I said, you're getting the better accuracy, but it's kind of also like I see a lot of people are out there stock up every single player. And sure, if Lauren, we said net stock up, yes, but is it stock up where you just see the line going up and you're all of a sudden like, ooh, this is a 20% boost? I think it's like a 5% because the difference between Mac and Cam is, yes, you get the accuracy, and yes, you probably get more passing touchdowns, but you don't get the bigger throws. And maybe Mac turns into that. Maybe he learns more of that in the NFL. But his biggest thing is he's kind of in that, although I was going to say Rich Gannon, but Rich Gannon had that 1 year where he did average a lot per attempt. He's kind of just more of a, not, and I don't want to call him a check down option because he's not Alex Smith. Like, he kind of feels like that. It's like he will take some shots deep, but you're going to get a more conservative offense. So I think this is good for Jacoby Myers and Nelson Aguilar and Jonnu Smith and maybe Hunter Henry when he's back. And those are the only ones. And I think that's why you're saying yes, if I'm assuming correctly. But it's not pushing these guys from wide receiver 4-5s into the wide receiver 3, correct?
I agree. And just like you said, too, we have to temper expectations here. Don't forget, Mac Jones is a rookie. And yes, he looks really good. He's throwing guys open. He's showing a lot of, his mental and football acumen is through the roof. But remember, young kid, NFL, we just need to make sure that we're not going absolutely bonkers without realistic expectations as we head into the season.
Yeah. So in Superflex, do you care about Mac Jones?
Oh, spicy. In deeper leagues, sure. I could take a shot.
Well, so that's where we're going here, because even in 2 quarterback leagues, it said maybe, because as you mentioned,
that's hard to say.
Yeah, tempered expectations. I updated my ranks, and he checks in as QB 30. He's a rookie. And QB 30 might sound super low because there's only 2 starting quarterbacks behind him, but at the same time, I'm looking at who's in front of him, and I'm saying there's names and there's real names, and I say real as in like established quarterbacks like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ben Roethlisberger, Sam Darnold, as much as we want to poo-poo Sam Darnold. But like these are other real legit quarterbacks we've seen, and maybe you say, okay, I'd rather take his upside over Sam Darnold, which I would disagree with, but I can see it. But I still don't know even how you get him inside the top 25, so let's do that, because somebody tweeted and said, actually, let's give the person some credit. I'll even call him out because I always appreciate it. Matt DuPont. Oh, Matt DuPont watched the show. He was one of the first questions in here. No, it's not even a question. He's joking about Peyton Barber being released by Washington football team. That's actually a good thing for Gibson. But yes, there you go. Let me put it up on the screen. So we are going to. I got to set it up. All right. Sorry, Lauren. All right. When we have somebody and we're trying to figure out where we're going to rank this player and we're not sure who we're going to put in front or behind him, what do we do, Lauren? Do you know what we do?
I don't know. What do we do? Tell me.
We make a list. I got to get you to do that one more time. Or once at least. I didn't even put the TV on. Look at this. I'm scrambling so much. You talk while I put the TV on and put the graphics on behind us.
I will. One of my favorite things to do ever is make lists. I kid you not, I do lists all the time. So this shall never happen again, Jake Ciely. I will be prepared.
Can you say it with the gravelly voice and extreme excitement like I do? Can you do it like the Jericho voice?
Did you do gravelly though? I didn't hear gravelly.
There's a little bit. It's gravelly from my voice. No. You save it for next time. Now people have to wait for anticipation until next time we do it.
Yes.
You can go practice it off to the side while we're not.
I will. I frequently do. The mirror and I are besties because I still don't do things right, even when I practice them all the time.
There we go. So screen's up. We're rolling. All right. Let's start at. How high do you want to go? You want to start at QB 20? QB 20 sound good? We'll do 10 quarterbacks. And we'll just run down this list, and you tell me this quarterback or Mac Jones. I have a feeling a lot of them are not going to be Mac Jones. But number 20 is Justin Fields. Justin Fields or Mac Jones. This is interesting because Justin Fields is starting, so you might say Mac Jones.
I am. Now, specifics here. Are we talking Superflex and 2 QB?
No, just straight ranking. Just straight ranking for 2021.
Straight ranking. Mac Jones.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Trey Lance or Mac Jones?
Mac Jones.
Wow. All right. How about Derek Carr or Mac Jones?
Oh, gross. Mac Jones. Ew.
Do you realize that Derek Carr was a top 15 quarterback last year?
Yes. Give me Mac Jones.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, you're dominating this list so far with Mac Jones. Baker Mayfield or Mac Jones?
I'll take Baker here.
Okay. Fitz. I'm assuming Fitz or Mac. You're going Fitz?
Fitz all day.
Okay.
Heart him.
Zach Wilson, the other rookie starting officially week 1, or Mac Jones.
This one is, all of them are actually, not all of them, some of them are a little bit easier. I do have explanations for why I would go with Mac Jones as opposed to Trey Lance and Justin
We'll come
Fields.
back to them.
Calm down, everybody. Zach Wilson is an interesting one for me. I would take Zach Wilson here.
Okay, so would I.
Yes.
That's why I have. This is my list so far. Ben Roethlisberger or Mac Jones.
Ben Roethlisberger.
That was varied levels of emotion going through.
It was because it was like, then it was like, and then it's like, okay.
You were that GIF with that guy's face where he's like he makes the really disgusting face and he's like, oh wait, maybe, no, that one. That was Sam Darnold or Mac Jones.
I'll take Sam Darnold. I really believe in him in this offense.
Okay, Carson Wentz or Mac Jones?
Carson Wentz.
Jared Goff.
Oh.
You see, and this is what it
Mac
comes down
Jones.
to. See, look, and if you want to go down back to back, Jared Goff and Mac Jones, 29 and 30. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Look, Jared Goff doesn't have, we can crap all over Jared Goff. We do it all the time in the fantasy community.
Good, because I will. Thank you for the invite.
And I was one of the lowest all along. But I'm not saying that to victory lap Jared Goff, because it's easy to victory lap somebody who's not playing well. I'm doing it to say this. This is somebody who is never liked Jared Goff, even when he was playing well, because there was flaws to his game, and the NFL figured out the flaws, and this is why he's not been good since. All that being said, Jared Goff, for fantasy purposes, still put up top 20 numbers. And granted, he's got a lot of questionable situations on his own team, with Tyrell Williams, the one. Who knows who's the number 2? It might be Cephas. But he's got Hawkinson, a banged-up Swift. It's still I could see, and that's why I could see the argument for Jared Goff versus Mac Jones, all speculation and being a conservative passer, whatever it might be. But I want to come back. So we basically agree on the entire list. Jared Goff, a toss-up. If you want to go Mac Jones, I have no problem with that. The entire list, except for the guys at the top, the first 2 that I mentioned, which I have them there on pure upside, is Justin Fields and Trey Lance, because I think Justin Fields starts sooner than later. I think Andy Dalton, this is, honestly, if I'm a Bears fan, I understand throwing Dalton, quote unquote, to the Wolves in week 1 in Los Angeles to play the Rams. I understand that. And I've already made the case to say, if Justin Fields bombed in that game, because it's such a tough scenario to play in, and you don't want that on the team to be like, okay, do we have to go back to, Andy Dalton? Now it's a mess. I understand that. All that being said, if I'm a Bears fan, I still want Justin Fields out there for week 1. But Trey Lance too, and I know it's the fingers, potentially out for a week, but all that being said is, once they're both starting, I'm taking him over Mac Jones, and it's not even close. They're not even in the same stratosphere as Mac Jones.
Sure.
And that's where I'm banking off right here. But you would still go Mac Jones, I guess, knowing he's starting?
Exactly. So your key phrase here was when they're starting. They're not starting. So for me, you rank them there with the upside, which I think is 100% great. I'm a little bit more conservative when it comes to that. I know that Mac Jones is going to be starting, so I would rather have a little bit more of the consistency there. And then I'll be sad about it later when I miss out on the upside of Trey Lance and Justin Fields, because they're mobile quarterbacks, especially Justin Fields. He's exciting. And I'm excited for the Bears. I'm excited for Chicago. And I can't believe I just said that as a St. Louis person, but I am. It's going to be very exciting for them. But for me, it really just boils down to knowing who is starting. Literally. That's it.
So how about this? If I told you Fields is starting week 4, guaranteed. Week 4 is Justin Fields is starting, or Mac Jones. Would you still go Mac Jones?
No, I'd go Justin Fields.
Okay. And I think that's warranted, especially in the Lance. And I do want to talk about Lance. We were going to talk about Trey Lance anyway.
That one's so murky. I know we are.
Yeah. And let's jump into it, because I think we've touched everything on Mac Jones. Actually, there's a question there. Adam, we did touch on Mac Jones for Jonnu Smith. He affects everybody. Jonnu's stock up, but it's not a huge boost. Jonnu, for me, was tight end 11, and I think he went to tight end 10. It was a small boost and a small bump. More so, just again, it's the increased reception rate because of the accuracy, but you also lose a little bit per air yards or yards per attempt, whatever number you want to use. So it offsets a little bit. So again, stock up. I'll just throw this out real quick before we do get to Trey Lance, Lauren. Which would you do if you were in a draft right now? And I know a lot of people still haven't drafted. A lot of people like to wait till the day before the season starts to avoid injuries, but at least we have no more preseason games left. So you can draft from now until next Wednesday and be okay. Hopefully, nobody gets hurt in practice. But that's the thing: you get hurt in practice, you get hurt in week 1. 2 months ago, you get tons more ADP value than you get now. So there's arguments to both sides. That being said, if you're drafting today, do you want Jonnu Smith or do you want Rob Gronkowski?
Oh, okay. I'm so glad you asked this question.
Are you?
Yes, I am, because I have to think about it, because I have found myself in drafts kind of looking at different tight ends if I miss out on those elite few early, or if I don't have the cojones to go ahead and pull those early round triggers on a tight end. And one thing that always keeps popping into my head is that Jonnu Smith is not the only tight end that is on that team, right? Hunter Henry is still there too, and Hunter Henry is a red zone boss. So which tight end is going to be getting the most work? I don't know. But then when you look at it on the other side, I feel like I want to give a little bit more to Rob Gronkowski, but there's also Cameron Brate, and he was involved, so it's not like he's just a warm body that's out on the field. So this is I don't know. Why are you
You have to
asking me
pick
hard
one.
questions?
That's because what we're here for.
I know. We are here for this. Okay.
Here, I'll
would
throw
go
two nuggets
Jonnu
your
Smith.
way. Will you? Well, I was going to throw. This might change your answer. I might get you to
Okay.
change your answer
Change my
on the
mind,
show,
change my
right?
mind.
So,
Change-
no. So the argument for Jonnu is that there is surprisingly enough for everybody out there to clarify. So in case you're making assumptions and seeing them play, Jonnu is a very good blocker. Hunter Henry is even better, but they're close. Jonnu's a little bit more of a matchup problem. So in all intents and purposes, you would lean towards Jonnu running more routes than Hunter Henry. Although your concern is part of my concern as well, is that's not a guarantee. We're speculating. We're going on information we know, and we're going off the fact that Jonnu's healthy right now and Hunter Henry isn't.
Right.
And we're saying we should get more from Jonnu. But to your point, I wouldn't be surprised if they alternate weeks, and it's a very frustrating situation. On the flip side for Gronkowski, once he kind of got back into NFL quote-unquote shape, and I've referenced this on a lot of podcasts, Lauren, and this isn't to name drop Brian McFadden, but I'm saying this because he's a former NFL player, and his knowledge is beyond most. And what I had him on the podcast, and what he said about Gronk was what he was also tying into Antonio Brown, and I keep saying this. Kudos to Brian. He said that Antonio Brown wasn't going to show up till December, as in on the field, and he called that to a T if you look at Antonio Brown's season. But he also said Gronkowski was going to take some time. It's too much time off, just like Antonio Brown, to come back to the NFL. And from week 6 through the end of the season, Gronkowski was a top 7 tight end and potentially even higher depending on your leagues. If you just take that time when he was playing with Antonio Brown in December, he was still, oh, by the way, top 8 in that range. All that being said, your concern is valid with O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. But even with Antonio Brown, even with all those options last year, he was still a top 8 tight end. Does that make you lean back towards Gronk? Did I get you to change your answer?
You did. Congratulations. And then I'll find myself thinking about this all over again because there's so many unknowns that we just don't have enough clarity on. And just like you said, this is speculation. And as much as I like to speculate, it's not great when you get into that position and you're trying to decide which one to go. Frankly, I don't necessarily know if there's a wrong answer here because there is so much, murkiness that's surrounding both of these situations. So I think you're not going to hate yourself if you go with one or the other. It's just whenever I get into this position where I don't know who I should take and it's just neck and neck so close, the one thing I think of is who would I be more mad that wasn't on my team? Like who would I be the most upset about that I missed? And then I will go ahead and take that person just so I don't have any draft regret. And so that's really what it's going to boil down to for me here. I think for a lot of home leagues, though, Rob Gronkowski's name is a little bit too familiar to have him drop too far. So
Right.
The home leagues that I've done so far, he's actually going a little bit earlier than I think consensus ADP is at for him. So just keep that in mind, too. But I don't know if there's a wrong answer there between the two
So
of them.
the right answer, you kind of just alluded to it. The right answer is whoever is cheaper in your
Yeah,
draft.
literally. Yeah.
So there you go. You just answered. Oh, so a lot of questions here. So Mr. Nice Guy, what about Jacoby Myers, J.J. Taylor season, all these guys? We covered all of it. Go back to start at the beginning. Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, good. Small bumps up. You would what did you say, Lauren? You didn't jump in for the answer, but saying that they're both still kind of low end wide receiver 4s, right?
Jacoby Myers is an interesting name for me. I really like him, and I liked him last year as well. So if I had to choose between either of those wide receivers for the Patriots that I would want to have on my squad, I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers because his value is way too good, and Nelson Aguilar just doesn't do it for me. So I like Jacoby Myers a lot, and I would give him a little bit more than a slight bump, but temper expectations. Don't go too crazy with it.
Here's the problem. Now, I'm not going to do another list, but here's the problem. So I have Jacoby Myers in the 50s for wide receivers, and I like Jacoby Myers. The problem is, and this is a testament, again, we keep saying this every single year, but how ridiculous wide receiver is. And I could see him finishing as high as wide receiver 38 to throw out a random number. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at the names that are in the 40s, and I'm like, Jacoby Myers over, question mark. I'll just throw out a bunch of names. We're not making a list, but I'll throw out a bunch of names, and you say, Jacoby Myers over any of these, Lauren. Tyler Boyd, Fuller, Pittman, DJ Shark, Mooney, Hardman, Landry, Parker, Mike Williams. Those are my 40s. Are you taking Jacoby Myers over anybody in that list? And you can say if you want, but is there anybody in that list you take Jacoby over?
Yes, Will Fuller.
Why Will Fuller?
Will Fuller has not shown me enough sustainability to give me a safe enough floor. And I understand that when we're in that rank of wide receivers, we're not really looking for safety here. We're looking for those high upside guys, but Will Fuller has been way too boomer bust for me. He also has not been able to stay on the field long enough for me to be okay drafting him. So I would rather go with Jacoby Myers over Will Fuller there.
Okay. And so that was 1 out of the 40s. And that's what I'm saying. It's still tough to get him higher. Here's what I'll throw out. How about this? Would you take Jacoby Myers or Tyrell Williams?
Jacoby Myers.
Okay. I think I go Tyrell. Just because until hurt. Which that's the thing. It's like until hurt, I'm taking Tyrell Williams. Let's say this. If I told you would get 16 games out of Tyrell Williams, would you still take Jacoby?
Yeah. I would still take Jacoby Myers. I like him that much, but I could be unreasonably high on him. He's kind of one of those people that really works with the eyeball test. I wish I had some stats in front of me here that I could just throw out to you that would be like, oh my gosh, woo, mind's blown. You're so right, Lauren. But it's not. It's more of the feels. It's more of an intuition. When you watch, Jacoby Myers is there. He is I don't want to say consistent because he's not necessarily numbers-wise consistent, but he may be that guy that Mac Jones is going to be able to form a relationship with and be a security blanket. And someone is going to have to be there for him. I don't know which one it's going to be. So I'll take my shot on a guy that's going to be a little bit later in the draft. And if it doesn't pan out, I'll drop him to the waiver wire with, no capital lost. But if it does pan out, then you've got, a solid, especially in PPR leagues, if he's going to be a target monster, why not?
So this entire time you were saying that, there's one name that came to mind. He used to play for this team. He's a very similar wide receiver. If you slapped Edelman on the back of that jersey.
Yes.
And so I'm not saying he's Edelman yet, but a very similar style, very similar usage, very similar reliability, which is what you're throwing out there.
That's the word I was looking for.
Reliability.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you. I made a series of very poor choices yesterday, so my brain's a little fried today. So thank you for helping me out with my diction.
You're welcome. Yes, I can see him. That's why I can see him being a top 40. But it's just hard as a wide receiver. This is why I keep pounding. Go with running backs early because even in the 4th to 6th rounds, you're getting wide receiver 2s with wide receiver 1 upside. In the 7th or 10th, 11th, 12th rounds, there's still potential top 30 wide receivers. Not all of them are going to be that, but if you hit on the right ones. So let me scroll through real quick before we get back to Trey Lance. I just want to see any of these questions we might get to.
Trey Lance feels like it was a long time ago.
It does. See, I remember, though. I remember we were going to talk Trey Lance. We got a lot of Mac Jones. Phil Mike said Mac Jones or Mac Jones. Look, there you go. Jones. The disrespect to Carr. Haha. So there you go.
I know.
I have some.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, all right, we do have one question. It was way back up, Tino, all the way at 11:10, Mr. Nice Guy. Eckler and Mixon, safer bet. Fitzmagic statistically throws to wide receivers more, and we don't know Najee's true usage, which we weren't even talking these guys, but you're saying Eckler, Mixon, Najee Harris. We'll throw this out. So this conversation is actually warranted because yesterday, Ian Hartitz, it was saying that, everybody's talking about offensive lines for Harris and Mixon. They're saying, let's remember that offensive lines matter very little. And he didn't say this, but it's something I've been saying is David Montgomery was on a bottom 5 offensive line last year, but he ran through a great schedule and the volume. Yes. Volume. And he was saying about Mixon. So it's not so much I want to touch on Eckler versus Mixon versus Najee Harris, but are you in or out on Harris and Mixon because of the concerns of how bad those offensive lines look, or are you on the volume side of things?
I'm on the volume side of things. And just like you said, offensive lines here, I would go a little bit more for schedule. And that's one of the things that David Montgomery did so well, which is important as well. Just because it's a good matchup does not necessarily mean that your running back is going to be able to perform. But for those last 5 weeks, when they were playing against the bottom, 5 worst defenses against the run.
They had 5 games and they were all in the bottom 7.
7, that's right, the bottom 7. I mean, but David Montgomery was able to take advantage of that. So I'm not necessarily, am I worried about the offensive line? Sure. That's something to be aware of, absolutely, to work on tempering expectations and understanding reasonable, fantasy outcomes that can come out of it. But I'm not going to let it really persuade me to go one way or the other. I am out on Mixon, though. I am not really a huge fan of Joe Mixon at all. So I would be out on him no matter what, regardless of the offensive line and whatever. His sustainability is not there. So I am not even going to deal with the headache, and I'm going to choose somebody else.
Fair enough. Real quick before we do, Trey Lance is coming next. Promise. Matt DuPont, the Gilmore thing for week 1. You don't have to throw that up there, Tino. Next week we're going to be doing week 1 rankings. As I try to combine week and rankings into one word.
I can't say rookie wide receiver. Do you notice how I had to stop?
You just said it though.
I did, but I almost didn't because I always say Wookiee wide receiver.
And I can't say croissant. And I just did. That's a Friends reference for anybody out there that might not know the croissant. So, yeah, we will be talking week 1 rankings next week, so stay tuned for that. The breaking news, by the way, the Saints are planning not to be home for the entire first quarter of the NFL season. And David Bakhtiari.
I'm repping New Orleans. I got my fleur de lis.
The fleur de lis.
I do, yeah. It's on the fleur de lis. It is also on the St. Louis flag. Huge fan of New Orleans, and I don't mean to bring this super fun podcast down to a bummer, but thoughts and prayers to everybody in New Orleans. As someone who lives in Florida, I totally get the hurricanes. It's going to take a really long time for things to even get remotely close to being back to normal. So thoughts, prayers, love your way. It's a beautiful city with beautiful people in it. So best of luck. We're thinking about you.
100%, and well said. And yes, it's actually on my bucket list, mostly for the food. I just want to go down there for
the food is unbelievable. I usually have to go there every single year. This was the only year that we are not going to New Orleans. It's like a thing I have to do to fulfill and satisfy my life.
But yeah, so food definitely on the bucket list. I was saying Bakhtiari is out he's starting the season on the PUP for the Packers, just as a notable news thing. Yeah, so yeah, but at least he'll supposedly be healthy by the time he gets 100% instead of trying to rushing him back like some teams do. But hey, look, it's Trey Lance time. We're finally getting to Trey Lance. Speaking of being 100% and not 100%, the finger issue, they're being very coy. They won't even tell us. But if you watch the film, it looks like it was his index finger. Whether it is or not, I mean, it looks like he smacked it on a helmet. So it looks like it's the throwing hand and it's the index finger. But it sounds like still potentially ready for week 1. But we have to talk Trey Lance as a whole for a very different reason than I think any of us assumed, Lauren. Like a lot of us were sitting here and saying, I don't know, whichever side you're on one or the other. I was on Jimmy Garoppolo is starting until he goes haywire. And I meant 2 bad games where it's 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and he looks like he's falling apart because I kept comparing it to the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes or other teams where they've been in playoff contention and they don't need to turn to their quarterback, like the Bills didn't have any reason not to play Josh Allen. It was different, and I do agree that Trey Lance gives them a better opportunity. He's still a rookie. Jimmy Garoppolo's still been to a Super Bowl. We've had quarterbacks like Trent Dilfer who have been ridden by their teams he rode their teams to a Super Bowl, so you don't need to go to the better quarterback all the time. So those are the comparisons I was making. You might be on the side of saying it was going to be Trey Lance all the time. Point being, we went into it was going to be Trey Lance or Garoppolo. That's not what we saw, Lauren.
No.
We actually saw Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. We saw the Steve Spurrier offense for all intents and purposes, and let's rotate these quarterbacks. Assuming Lance is ready for week 1, are we headed down this road for the actual real season to be both quarterbacks every single game? And this was the fear of the New Orleans Saints situation, and now it makes them both undraftable? Or do you say, and hey, Lance is getting reps, so yes, I am going to draft Lance, and then hopefully he ends up getting all the reps?
I have heartburn just thinking about this. This is not okay. So I don't know if this is going to work. Okay, for real football, this is odd, right? Because I've never played football, but I did play a lot of sports, right? There is momentum, there is chemistry, there is an unspoken language that happens when you're out on the field, right? Kind of tough to do that when you're rotating quarterbacks. And why is Kyle Shanahan doing that in preseason? Is it because he wants to get a look at both? Is he kind of shown his cards a little bit that this could be something to expect in the season? I don't see it working. It's not okay. I don't like it. And yeah, it does. If that is going to be the way it goes, that is undraftable. Why would you even put yourself in that kind of a position? You'd have to stay away from both of them, but they might try this experiment out for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It's not working. There's not that chemistry that, goes the way that I think Kyle Shanahan maybe wants it to. Maybe Trey Lance plays some kind of a weird Taysom Hill type of role, just like you mentioned with New Orleans Saints, just to prepare him, get him some, playing time, in real football and in the NFL. And then maybe 2022 is going to be Trey Lance's year. I don't know, but I feel that pick a quarterback, Kyle. Pick a quarterback, please.
I honestly, I'm with you in the fact that this feels like it almost makes. So before, if you're stashing Lance for the upside and then he takes over, it's like, okay, cool. Sometime, Jimmy Garoppolo does go sideways and they say, forget it, we're going to Trey Lance. This almost, to what you're talking about, makes me less inclined to take Trey Lance because there's not where's the breakoff point if you're playing both? Where's the, oh my gosh, it's going so bad for Garoppolo that we're going to turn to Trey Lance, because it just might be like, well, Garoppolo really hasn't got a flow going because we're screwing around with him. So let's just give Garoppolo this entire start. And I feel like this is, it's as strange as it might sound, like this is less positive for Lance, even though he's getting reps that he might not have gotten.
I agree. I totally agree with you, because I just don't see two quarterbacks rotating in and out being successable.
Spurrier tried it. Bombed.
Exactly.
The NFL doesn't work like this.
Exactly. So I have no words. The only thing I have is a very bad taste in my mouth with this whole idea moving into the 2021 season. For fantasy, of course, I mean, this is what this show is about, but also for real football too. And I do think you're right. There is something unfair about this situation for Trey Lance. It's unfair for Jimmy Garoppolo as well, because he's a really solid stand-up dude. He's making it very difficult for me to just be like, yeah, Trey Lance, because you kind of want to root for Jimmy G too, because he's a really, really cool guy. And there's so many things that work for both of them. Just pick one. Just for the love of God, just pick a quarterback.
Pick one,
please.
Stick one, and go with it.
Ugh.
Just figure it out for us. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, please.
Really?
That'd be great.
Let's see. I got questions. Oh, so will we ever see Jake's head? I had no hat on one of the episodes so far. I don't remember. I don't always wear a hat. At some point you will. I'll try to remember that.
Our next show.
I was bringing that up, though, because we did already answer your other question, Fields or Lance, and we both agreed that we would take Fields, just because we know that's coming, and once it's coming, it's like, it's Fields. It's not going to be this back and forth and back and forth.
Real
quick.
Alternate Andy Dalton in there. Woo!
Oh, yeah, got to get him next to the shares. Before we get to the next one, Phil Mike, what are your thoughts on Keenan Allen, sub 10 yards per catch last year, and career touchdown production, but strong connection with Herbert? I love Keenan Allen as a wide receiver one, and part of it is just the fact that that's who Keenan Allen is. Guess what? People have made the same argument for Julio Jones and the touchdown production for his entire career. Incorrectly at times, but for most seasons, it's like 6. I'm fine with Keenan Allen because volume. That's what we. How many times do we have to preach that in fantasy? I'm not coming from you, Mike, saying that. Yeah, it's just like it's the volume. Like, what other wide receivers? Put it this way: how many wide receivers can you lock in 100+ receptions? And that's why I love Keenan Allen.
Agreed. Well said.
Would you say wide receiver 1 or top 10 even?
Yeah, I would. Top 10 is a little rich for Keenan Allen, I think, but definitely wide receiver 1 or a very, very high wide receiver 2. But either way, he is going to get you wide receiver 1 weeks. So, and he's still a really good value in drafts. So don't worry about Keenan Allen. He's great.
Keenan Allen or Terry McLaurin?
Oh, that's hard. Whichever one's the better value. I like both.
That's because I have him back-to-back in my rankings. Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper? Now that he sounds like he's Keenan Allen. All right, Keenan Allen or the other Allen Robinson. Keenan Allen Robinson.
I might go Allen Robinson, but I would have to really think about it.
I have Allen Robinson in front of him. That's right where he's.
Was this a test?
It was a test of the emergency broadcast system. You did. You passed. He is a fringe wide receiver 1. All right, so another quarterback situation. A lot of quarterback situations. This one's different for a different reason. This is completely speculative for some things here. I have a definitive answer on this, but I'm curious what your answer is, Lauren.
Oh, boy.
So over the weekend, we get Gardner Minshew traded. Who, but, he was just in a quarterback competition with Trevor Lawrence not 2 weeks ago. Don't forget, everybody. Yeah, we weren't sure that was going to happen. Gardner Minshew traded to the Eagles. Now, there's immediate speculation there's 2 outcomes here. Is the people who are on the one side of the side of Jalen Hurts, say, look, whatever, this is about Joe Flacco. And then you have the people who are anti-Jalen Hurts who say, ooh, this is about Jalen Hurts. Which side does Lauren fall on? Is this about Hurts or is this about Flacco?
I think this is about Flacco. That's where I'm going to fall here. Gardner Minshew and Jalen Hurts are two very different quarterbacks, two very different people. Curious about, honestly, I'm curious about that whole trade. So, I mean, yeah, this is about Flacco. I don't see how it can be about Jalen Hurts. I've heard this narrative that Nick Sirianni can't stand Jalen Hurts. I don't know why that would. Did he say this? Was he like on his gram getting all, throwing shade at Jalen Hurts? I don't think so. So yeah, for me, this is about Joe Flacco. This is not about Jalen Hurts. Calm down, everybody.
And if you've watched the preseason and seen Joe Flacco, this
will not be surprising.
No, I am 100% with you. For anybody that's not watching the live stream, I did give it 2 thumbs up when Lauren said this is about Joe Flacco, because yes, I do think this is more about potential backup. And you said that you're right, Hurts and Minshew are different, but Minshew kind of is the in-between of Hurts and Flacco.
He is like the missing link. He's, you know what I mean?
He fits in between. So what I'm saying is, like, you have to change the offense less things like Hurts gets hurt. You have to change less to go to Minshew. You have to change more if you're going to go with Flacco. This offense isn't made for Flacco, and I think that's part of, not to be all, it's all Joe Flacco, but I think that's part of it too, is Joe Flacco's running an offense that he's not 100% comfortable with, just like the Flacco offense changed for Lamar Jackson when that happened. So I do think it is more about Flacco, 100% I'm with you, and where we've talked about Andy Dalton and Jimmy Garoppolo, I think of even Jimmy Garoppolo and Jalen Hurts, I think Jalen Hurts has the longer leash of all three of them, because the Eagles are out here, yes, they want to contend. There's a question of whether or not they even can, but they also want to know, is Jalen Hurts the answer? I know you mentioned there's reports about Sirianni not potentially liking him, but you have to have Jalen Hurts going out there and looking incapable of being in the NFL for 3 weeks in a row before you go away from him, because you've now designed the offense for Hurts.
Yeah.
Do you go into next year's draft drafting a quarterback again? You're going to find that out. And I would say the over-under for me, for Hurts, I'd put his starts at like 11.5. Like, I really don't think they're going away from Hurts unless it's just you cannot make an excuse to put him on the field anymore.
I agree with you, or injury, God forbid. So yeah,
Yes.
and don't forget, this is also a young team too. So not only is Jalen Hurts himself young, but they just drafted Devonta Smith, Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver. And
Who did he play with in college, by the way? Jalen Hurts.
Weird. So there's going to be this kind of growth, if you will. They're going to want to see how that can be fostered in the NFL. And you can't do that if you're taking Jalen Hurts off the field. You can't see what that tandem can do if you don't give them time to be able to form this relationship in the NFL. So yeah, this is all boiling down to, I think, what, just like you said, what works best for the Eagles in this situation. And it's not Joe Flacco, because it's just not how he knows how to run an offense and how to be a successful quarterback in this style of offense. So for me, don't worry about Jalen Hurts.
And I completely agree with you. And for anybody that doesn't watch the live stream, you just missed one of the benefits. You get to see Barkley.
Barkley! I did see Barkley. My cat is over there. He's definitely not as fun.
No, Barkley's been kind of running around, so I just want to make sure she doesn't get into anything while we're doing this. She always gets more energetic when I'm on a podcast. She knows. She knows.
Of
Dad's
course
trying
she
to
knows.
Last thing before we get out of here, Chase Claypool. And I bring up Chase Claypool because I've been off of Chase. I actually have 0 shares of Chase Claypool because, part of it's Deontay, as everybody knows, Deontay Johnson. Did your cat just knock something over? Is that what that noise was in the background?
Nope. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So Deontay Johnson, clearly the number one. I've brought up the stat a lot that the 11 healthy games where he also finished the entire game and didn't get benched, he was actually wide receiver 5 in fantasy points per game. And even if you want to throw the benching in there, let's throw the benching in there because he did get benched for his own play. Let's do that. Okay, he's still wide receiver 11. He's still a wide receiver 1. And that's why I love Deontay Johnson, because he's the guy. Juju Smith-Schuster still played admirably for what was going wrong last year and scored more touchdowns you probably should when you only have that many receptions and yards. All that being said, is this preseason looks like if somebody's not on the field for 2 wide receivers, it's still Claypool. And what we just saw in that final preseason game was no Deontay, no Juju, but Claypool played a decent chunk. which also kind of tells me, yes, he's still number 3. Chase Claypool is going still inside the top 30 wide receivers. Is he being overdrafted to this date still, Lauren? And I said still like 3 times in there.
I forgive you this time. Don't do it again, Jake.
Don't
do it again.
You still forgive me?
I still forgive you. Yes, we nailed it. Excellent. High five. So, yeah, I think he is overvalued. I think he's being overdrafted. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but you have to remember the thing with Chase Claypool is that he is the definition of boom or bust. Because when you're looking, I mean, if you just take a look at what his season looked like, right? He finished in the top 10, let's see, 1, 2, 3 times. That's it. But when he finished in the top 10, it was explosively in the top 10. And all other times after that, listen, he was, okay, weeks 12 through 16, he was wide receiver 38 or worse. I mean, that's way worse. In fact, one of them was only 3 fantasy points against Buffalo, and that was wide receiver 86. So when it comes to drafting players that are boom or bust, you say the word still, I'll say the phrase temper expectations. You have to understand what you are drafting. So if you are drafting him for the upside because you want to take a shot on it, okay, that's up to you. But he's not the consistent player. He's not the target hog in that offense at all. So yes, I think in a way he is being overdrafted because people are not drafting him with the correct expectations of how he is going to be utilized in this offense.
And I'm with you on that. Like I said, I've been off of Chase Claypool. I still
it
have
sounded
him
very bossy right there. I apologize.
No, this is you want the confidence. We want to steer people in the right direction. The Claypool situation is so I have him inside my top 35 wide receivers. Do I want him there? No, because this is what to go back to your Will Fuller way back at the beginning of the show is Claypool will finish top 35 if he plays the entire season. But it's that roller coaster that I don't want to get there with him. Like I'll watch somebody else deal with that because
right.
Here's what I'll say. If you do end up drafting Claypool, if you do, because Claypool is going to be in every single team or on a team in every single league, you just have to play him. You can't. It's the Jared Cook of tight ends. Don't try to predict the good games. Don't try to predict the bad games because he'll show up in a bad matchup and he'll not show up in a cake one just because it's touchdown dependent and it's also kind of fluky of what's going on with Deontay and Juju Smith-Schuster and the waterfall effect. So if you draft him, grit your teeth and bear it type of thing, just keep him in your lineup because you'll miss the good games. Just keep him out there. But what we're talking about here is don't draft him because he's going too high. Instead, draft Marvin Jones and Corey Davis, which that's your answer, Sasha. Claypool or Corey Davis? It was always Corey Davis. It's always been Corey Davis. It'll always continue to be Corey Davis. Correct, Lauren?
Correct, especially with this connection he's making with Zach Wilson. Yes, please. I haven't really been a big fan of Corey Davis in the past, but he really started to emerge onto the scene with the Titans, and he now has a brand new identity that he doesn't have to be behind anybody necessarily with this revamped, facelifted Jets. So I absolutely, Corey Davis here. For
All right,
sure.
last one before we get out of here.
Still.
Still. That's a record for how many times we say still in a show. The Williams, last question before we get out of here. From Miles. You got it in under the buzzer, Miles. Should I drop Mike Williams for Tyrell Williams? I'll let you go first.
No.
Okay.
No. Don't do that. And don't. Nope, don't do that.
I say no, but I say as well no. But I say find a way to get Tyrell Williams. Because until hurt, which, I hate to put that on. Hey, maybe he finally stays healthy. He is injury prone. There's a difference between injury plagued. We covered this. Injury plagued is various different unrelated injuries, and you're unlucky. Injury prone is Tyrell because they're similar injuries, especially when you start going to the soft tissue route and stuff like that. So I want to find a way to get Tyrell Williams while healthy, because while healthy, he's the number one, 20+% target share, even from Jared Goff, makes you valuable, makes you at least a top 50 wide receiver, especially while you're out there and Anthony Lynn likes you. So I will say this, Tyrell, find a way, drop somebody else. Hey, look, the season's still a week plus away. If you're in an idiotic league that has kickers, drop your kicker until week 1, and then maybe an injury pops up elsewhere and you open up a spot that way. That's the other thing I'll say before we get out of here, Lauren. If you're in a stupid non-banned kickers league, which you should never be in anymore, make that end today. But if you are, just get rid of that. Even if a defense, unless you got a top 2 or 3 defense, drop your defense too. Just leave those spots open for wide receivers or running backs, and then drop somebody before that week 1 starts, because injuries, as we've seen, could clear up a spot for you anyway. But once again, Exactly. Still, to this day, true.
Still.
And you should still be following Lauren at Stepmom Lauren. Do you want to tell everybody where they can, again, remind her your website and all that type of stuff?
I'm still at Stepmom Lauren, Lauren, and you guys can find my work, stepmomlauren.com, and then you can see us together every Tuesday now. You may come to regret this, Jake. I'm just warning you.
I still don't, as of today. There's another still. Sasha, yes, if only Kenny Stills was still a thing, then that would be terrific. And we will be back. Oh, I'll be back tomorrow, 2 p.m. with Jeff Ratcliffe. Phil, Mike, the favorite way to eat eggs is the only way I make scrambled eggs, especially great scrambled eggs. So there's also other good ways. But Mondays, 10 a.m. with Chris Meany. Tuesdays, going forward, as you see, with Stepmom Lauren. At 11 a.m., different time, 2 p.m. Wednesdays with Jeff. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back next week with Lauren. Still giving you great fantasy football advice. Love you guys. See you later.